Hola, hola, hola. Welcome in to the East of First podcast with Isaac Ambrose. Thanks for tuning in. Again, want to give a shout out to Mike Carpenter, the 200 level. So blessed to be able to start my spinoff podcast of the 200 level. Illinois sports, football, basketball, maybe a little bit of sports betting, but probably not this episode because I don't think I've hit a parlay this month. Just ask Trevor Valise. We try to decipher the Cubs, usually NBA a little bit, but we have had absolutely zero luck recently. And, maybe that's why they say don't get into sports betting, because you tend to lose, even when it seems like you got good odds, especially the NBA, because things seem to be so difficult to predict. Paul George took over without Kawhi Leonard last night and beat the Jazz. So, of course, I took the Jazz money line like everybody would. That's a easy loss right there. Not that you tuned in to listen to me give terrible betting advice. I did have a good nostalgia moment a couple nights ago. The 2019 Illinois basketball win against Michigan State at home. I drove down from Olivet Nazarene, where I was going to school, with a buddy who was a Michigan State fan. I remember having hope. I think Michigan State had come off of 3 straight losses. They were still number 9 in the country. And for those of you who were at that game or remember what I'm talking about, we had that buzz. We were on that little bit of a hot streak. You came out strong like a lot of teams do with that home court advantage, even though your record was well below 500. Michigan State, obviously, top 10 in the country coming in. It's just a trap game for them. Illinois fans, we really had that buzz. The Ohio State winner his freshman year, Georgie's 35 points with Rutgers. And you had won some of those games that we never thought we would have won that year. So Michigan State comes to town. I'm at the game. It's about 75% full. But there's still that buzz. You start off hot, and I think you go up 13 at one point, and then the wheels start to fall off. Cassius Winston gets going. Kenny Goins, of all people, hits like back-to-back threes. But you're able to recover. You go down a few points with 4 or 5 minutes left. Trent hits some huge free throws. Felice missed that guy, hits a few big shots, and then Io takes over. We all remember the Dan Dockich. It's not going to turn out well for Illinois, which we all know it did. That, for me, really felt like the Io coming out game. Just for me personally, the way he was able to close that game, and you thought, okay, this freshman stud who, it could have gone one of two ways. There's a lot of top 40 freshmen that don't end up being key contributors on a lot of teams. So the fact that you got your home state kid from Chicago, and he was actually talented, probably should have been ranked a little bit higher. And the fact that from the jump, I know Io had a few tough games the beginning of his freshman year, but it seemed pretty much from the jump he was mentally ready for the college basketball stage, and he hits those back-to-back threes. You beat Michigan State, storm the floor. Just an awesome experience. Hard to believe that was well over 2 years ago now, and look at where you are now. I mean, I don't think Illinois fans can really appreciate Io enough. And of course, there's been hundreds and hundreds of articles and interviews about him, and I mean, even national stories. But the fact that the home state kid wanted to come and turn this program around in really 24 to 36 months. I mean, you took a young kid from Chicago who came in here when the program was nothing, essentially, still looking in the past, looking back to 2005, essentially. And to take that team really in 2 years to a 1 seed is just hard to even fathom. I'm a little biased. I mean, Io's my favorite Illini basketball player of my lifetime, and I know a lot of older people would say he's not even in top 3 or 4, but just the impact he had on the program. And I do know his final game was not the most pleasant to watch on the eyes, and a lot of us are still trying to forget it, but the impact he had on the program, the fact that he is probably my D Brown because I was a little bit behind that age range of D Brown, it just meant so much to have somebody that was nationally relevant. They wore that number 11 with swag, and they were that killer that at the end of the game, you knew if Io had the ball in his hands, you had a shot to win. I don't care if you were playing the Utah Jazz. You always had a chance to win if Io had the ball. Quick transition here. Some other Illinois news this week, which there wasn't much. Illinois alumni, the TBT team, House of Pain. Brandon Paul came over from the Tampa Bay team, I believe. LaTulip talked him into it. That's stud news. Brandon Paul is probably number 2 on my all-time Illini list. Again, I'm biased. I'm younger. He was the last guy to take you to the tournament, essentially, and he had just a handful of big moments. I remember the dunk against Minnesota, the 43-point game against Ohio State. He played really well in the tournament. That's a guy that it's just easy to root for. I wish that the NBA route would have worked out, better, but he's had some success overseas, and it's going to be great to have him on the TBT team. That's just a fun thing to watch when the summer is just at a dead point, and it feels like it's been such a long summer because nothing has happened, and maybe this happens every year where baseball seems to be the only thing on. I guess we still have NBA, but Illinois news, man, it's been a long summer. The coaching thing, nothing's really come of it, and I know Whitman came out the other day talking about 100% capacity, which is going to be awesome. Can't wait to be in a packed State Farm Center, hopefully packed Memorial Stadium, both of those streets on East of First there, if you haven't picked that up yet. But State Farm Center, obviously, for me, is the more exciting venture just because, we're a basketball school. Something about fitting that many people into a smaller arena where the court is obviously a lot smaller too. So if you get 15,500 people shoulder to shoulder just screaming for the orange and blue, there's just really nothing like it. Being around a bunch of people that are also nuts like you, I'm immediately thinking back to the Michigan State Maryland games of 2020, which of course you lost both. Thought you lost Io for maybe ever in that Michigan State game, but I remember showing up to the Maryland game, Friday night game, national TV. That was the first time I'd ever been to State Farm Center, and you had to wait outside just to get into the door, unless you were obviously an Orange Crush member waiting to get in there. But it was about 20-25 minutes, and it was 15 degrees, but it was just so worth it, feeling that relevance. Scott Van Pelt came to town, and here I go. When there's no Illinois news, you have to revert back to the nostalgia. And I'm trying not to think about the doubts of the future. As an Illinois fan, you automatically have to look out for those scaries. It's just our natural reaction to be negative or to think, okay, Brad Underwood might not have this, but he really does seem to have it. The fact that you haven't lost any transfers, I mean, I highly doubt any other program like us that has lost major coaches kept all their recruits and kept most of their players like we have. So you got to give Brad credit. Chester Frazier probably needs a major nap. Jeff Alexander makes sense. It's not an insanely exciting hire, but if you get a guy that knows Brad's system, knows his X's and O's, then I'm totally all right with that. Going back to Whitman, him saying, give it time, relax. I believe him. I believe him to an extent, and Brad saying, some of the options we have will blow your mind. If you are waiting for an NBA guy, that is definitely worth it. I don't personally know any NBA coaches that would be open to leaving their $1 million coaching gig to come sign up and recruit and go through all the mental battles of being a college coach. But hey, if you're able to recruit one of those guys back down to the college level and put them on your sidelines, then I'm okay waiting. It's been a long summer. It just feels longer than normal because there hasn't been much news, and we just have been stuck in this limbo. I feel like if you would have made it, again, coulda, woulda, shoulda, if you would have made it another weekend in the tournament and just not had such an abrupt end to the season, the summer wouldn't be as bad, because instead of being able to always look back to 2021 and say, well, we're not good this year, but hey, remember 2021? It's going to be like, oh, 2021 was great, but are we going to plateau, go down, or are we going to keep rising and stay a steady program in the grand scheme of things, which I think that Illinois can do, and I think Brad Underwood is definitely that guy. It is hard to do, though. Not many programs are able to keep that stability and continuously make the tournament. I feel as though, too, when you get the big news of a head coaching change in football, which doesn't happen all the time at a major program, you get the Brad Brett Bielema news, then all the basketball news every single day. And all that kind of came to an abrupt end after the Brett Bielema hype started to fade away, which I'm still very excited for. But you get all that news, you get some transfers, you get the super senior stand for football. And then for basketball, everything came to such an abrupt end. And it got to the point a few days after the tournament where I just didn't want to hear it anymore. So again, it's like when you date somebody, and we all know somebody younger that we dated. You talk to them every day, you text them every day. Kids nowadays Snapchat every day. And then when you break up, all that habit is out of your life. As an Illinois fan, I'm checking, Illini Inquirer. I'm listening to a podcast 24/7. I'm listening to the guys over at The Drive 24/7 and trying to eat all that information up. So when you break that habit and go to just living and being like, I guess I'll check the Cubs score, it is a weird feeling, and it makes you more excited for the fall. And circling back to my top Illini board, I put this on my notes just to bring up because every time I think about this player, my heart hurts a little bit for him. I was actually born in Belleville, Illinois, just like former Illini. Malcolm Hill was raised, went to high school down there. As an Illini fan, I think we all shed a little tear when you think about Malcolm Hill because of how awesome he was. What a great guy, personality-wise, character-wise, completely off the charts. And if anybody deserved a tournament, it was a guy like Malcolm Hill. He just was always a class act. You could tell he bled orange and blue. Really developed too as a player. He got very good at that sort of mid-range step back. Those are just the guys you want in your program and who really don't seem to come around as much often. So Malcolm Hill rounds out my top three, and then I'm going to put Kofi in there as an honorable mention. Kofi Coburn. The fact that he came to the program when he did and was just such a force. And it was so nice to know that you had the guy that had other coaches up at night. How are you going to stop Kofi? Because there really wasn't an easy way to do it. And just have an absolute monster like that completely changed the defense. 1-2 punch with him and Io. Probably the best 1-2 punch in the country last year. Definitely in the regular season and definitely in that early part of March when you were unstoppable. 2 of my top 4 Illini are gone, which is sad. That is why I found so much comfort in reliving the 2019 victory over Michigan State, because those were just some of the upsets you were able to relive and how many big games you've won here in the past 3 years. You've probably won more big games the past couple of years than you have combined between after D and Darren until you got to Io, until you got to Kofi. In that 10, 12-year stretch, you didn't do a whole lot of interesting, exciting things. I'm always going to be looking back to this 2021 team and getting excited, just like I think many of you will. But hey, maybe in a couple years I'll be saying these same things about Curbelo, and I can't be more at peace with a guy like Curbelo having the program in his hands. Andre Curbelo just seems like that next Cassius Winston type guy. Underwood loves him. You're able to keep him even though Antigua left. Let's hope for another few solid years of Andre Curbelo, and hopefully the NBA doesn't pick up on how good he is here shortly. The sport that we're closer to, though, obviously is football, and just a couple months away, really. Summer's getting going. Hard to believe it's already June. And if we really can get 100% capacity Memorial Stadium and actually get 100% of tickets sold, that's going to be a very, very exciting place to be. I know I'm a little biased because I'm an Illinois fan, but I've been to a lot of different Big Ten places. I've been to the Big House. I've been, to Camp Randall, to East Lansing. I think Grange Grove is awesome. If you get that place around Memorial Stadium 100% popping, that is going to be really amazing. I know a lot of us were at the North Carolina-Illinois game a few years ago when Mitch Trubisky came in and tore it up. And that feeling before the game and then the first quarter, that felt like big time college football, which I hope Bielema can return you to. And maybe this fall we'll sell a lot of tickets just because people are ready to be back together in Champaign. Something about just being outside, you get the tailgates going. It's 60 degrees, sun's out, but it's not too hot, not too cold, and getting thousands and thousands of people sitting outside enjoying the weather and cheering for Illinois. It's just something we missed for such a long time because the stadium was so empty, and I put that in the podcast bio. Illinois is at a major crossroads, and Lovey made you a bowl, and now you've made a tournament here with Brad Underwood, but the next few years are going to be the important steps. I mean, you made bowl games and the tournament back in 2013, and look what happened there. So I'm really not hoping to have the next 5 or 6 years be like the past 5 or 6 years and relive all of that again. In 2 months, 2 short months, training camp's going to start there at the beginning of August, and I think the biggest thing we'll be talking about, which seems like it comes up a lot, now that the Isaiah Williams, Brandon Peters thing has sort of been put to rest, and I don't imagine Art Sikowski having much to say in the quarterback room. But hey, another Big Ten Power 5 quarterback you're putting in the room, you might as well, and maybe he can develop into something. But the offensive line, we can't say enough about just some of these guys coming back, and you get Kramer back, Palcho coming off that injury, he's going to be healthy. You're able to move guys around, Jarasati, Veridian Lowe. You have potential to be such a good offensive line. And if there's one thing Illinois had, and I don't think it's Lovey's credit at all, but in his time here, you really had a solid offensive line. And the past couple of years, you've really been able to run the ball. Part of that might have been Rod Smith's offense. Reggie Corbin was just able to make people miss. He was fun to watch. It'll be interesting to see the offensive line, how they do with a more competent coaching staff. You know, a guy, Brett Bielema, who knows offensive line because we know what he did in Wisconsin. And if he can take Wisconsin every year and just have those bulldozer offensive lines, then he's got to be licking his chops for the guys in his offensive line room right now. And you can tell based off the kids he's recruiting, these tough, 3-4-star kids that are probably going to be in your program all 4 years, and they just want to come in and shove people around and play football. That's probably what I'm most excited for, too, is just watching the offensive line. And I want to see, it'll take a while, but I want to see if Bielema can develop Illinois into that Wisconsin. And I know all of us, that's what we want to be, because I think there's a lot more likely that Illinois becomes Wisconsin than we would somehow become a Michigan or Ohio State. If we can get that ground and pound, run the ball, play solid defense like Wisconsin always did, then that's going to be exciting because you're going to have your identity. I know a lot of these recruits aren't, jumping off the walls like we were a few years ago, getting so excited for Isaiah Williams and Marquez Beeson, but I think Brett knows what he's doing, and he's trying to get these hogs in the trenches because he knows that's where you win football games. It's won in the trenches. You can make up for a lot if you got some big dogs up front that are able to move that line of scrimmage. And for so long, Illinois, you just didn't have the guys. You just didn't have the guys holding their weight. They were getting pushed around, and you were putting guys in spots where they shouldn't be. Interested to see what Calvin Avery does. We got so excited for him, and Isaiah Gay, Carney coming back. You're going to have some studs, and Jake Hansen, obviously, probably one of the guys I'm most excited for. But yeah, the offensive line, that's going to be what's worth watching. You're going to have 2-3 probably guys that play on Sundays in the future, or at least are on a roster. I know Bart Miller is getting excited. It's like deja vu for them, like they had back in Wisconsin. And Tony Peterson, he's got to be excited to know he can work with Brandon Peters, work with these weapons, and he's got that brick wall in front of him. Now, if you obviously have some injuries, then it's going to be a long fall, and it's not going to be as nice as I'm making it sound. But there you go. That's my probably most exciting piece for football coming up this fall. And we're still 2 months out. A lot can change, but you got to be optimistic about what's coming up here with Bielema's first year. And I'm totally fine winning 4 or 5 games. Now, I can't say totally fine. I will be okay winning 4 to 5 games if you are competitive, you don't make so many mental mistakes like you did with Lovey, and you're just more of a competent football team, and you don't look like a bunch of guys that haven't even practiced or don't know the rules of the game. I don't want to keep dogging on Lovey. I'm happy for him. He got another NFL job, but if Brett just does half the things correctly that Lovey was never able to do, like manage timeouts, then I'd say us Illinois fans are going to be pretty happy. Circling back to basketball, you got to be most excited that besides Curbelo and besides Trent and DeMonte coming back, that's awesome. I'm excited that you get this stud freshman class. I mean, it's still a solid freshman class, and they don't have to be studs right away. They can just get that work in, get that practice, watch stud guys like Curbelo, like Trent, like DeMonte, possibly pick them on the defensive end, because I have no doubt Luke Goody could go out there and hit 5-6 threes in a game, but now can he get back on defense? Can he rebound? Melendez, Goody, Podziemski, Omar Payne, that's real exciting too, but I'm really excited for the freshmen to come in and not have to be that all-star right away. It's just like nowadays how in the NFL, the Bears, for instance, Justin Fields doesn't need to be Trevor Lawrence right away. He doesn't need to be Patrick Mahomes right away. He's in a very solid situation. I think Andy Dalton can be a game manager, so there you go. You have your starting five. You got guys like Trent, Grandison, DeMonte, Curbelo that can keep the ship floating while guys like Goody and Melendez and Podziemski are gaining that confidence, getting better at the Division I level. Because no matter where you played in high school, unless you're one of these Zion Williamsons that is going to go to Duke and start right away and dominate, it's going to be a transition. So that's what's so nice about having these guys that don't need to come in right away and be the guy. Probably going to cut it off here, a little bit shorter one, but just wanted to get on here, give my thoughts on the past week. It's always good to relive some awesome nostalgia, and again, Iowa's my favorite player. He's a dog, so watching that Michigan State game the other night, and then just thinking about some of these other big moments from the past few years, it's just something I'm really going to cherish. Last year, of course, that stunk, not being able to all be together for it, but hey, it's going to make us appreciate this fall. The fall's coming up, so get ready to pack State Farm Center, pack Memorial Stadium, and thank you again for listening. Not going to talk sports betting this time. Probably wait to get Trevor on, and you don't probably want my advice the past few weeks, so I'll get back in the lab, get some studying, and then hopefully I can give some solid advice here on the next episode. Thanks again for tuning in to East of First with Isaac Ambrose. Have a good one.